Welcome to the third session of the series, Understanding and Communicating with Youth Survivors of Sex Trafficking. I'm Lauren Beal, Senior Program Manager at the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges, and I will be facilitating this exciting discussion on engaging youth choice, and voice with our faculty, Judge John Romero and Tony McKinley.
Hello, my name is John Romero. I'm a retired children's court judge from Albuquerque, New Mexico. In that capacity, I presided over juvenile justice cases and dependency or neglect and abuse cases, as they're called in other parts of the world. I'm also the past president of the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges.
Hi, my name is Tony McKinley. I'm a licensed counselor here in Texas. I am also the community director at Magdalene House, which is a home for survivors of women who have been trafficked. And I have lived experience of child sex trafficking.
Thank you both. Judges frequently refer sexually exploited youth to community-based services or to secure treatment centers. What factors should a judge consider in making a referral?
Great question. You want to start with that, John?
Go ahead, Tony.
Well, I think number one, you need to know where you're referring a youth to. Have you been there? Like, have you visited? Have you talked to anyone that works there? There's a lot of organizations that have beautiful websites, great pamphlets, and talk a really good game. And maybe they are very intentional too, but it doesn't mean that they're trauma informed, that they know how to help survivors who have been trafficked. And these kids run from them over and over again. And when they run from them, it's even more difficult to get them to go back once they're recovered again. And so in short, I would say the number one thing is that if you're referring to an organization, I would make a lot of effort, if you can, to go and visit that place. And most organizations should love and welcome you to come visit there, especially if you're referring kids that you're working with there.
Yeah, I mean, my comment was going to be there are community-based services and there are community-based services, and there are treatment centers, and the word that I said I didn't like, or the label secure treatment centers, that are good and some that are not so good. And they change over time. What may have been a great resource last year that you sent a couple of young folks to may not be doing all that well now in terms of funding, in terms of staffing, in terms of their approach to dealing with young kids. And we've talked a little bit about unacceptable behavior in the courtroom. How is unacceptable behavior in a treatment facility or in a community-based program dealt with? That's a question that judges should know the answer to. Are they punitive? Are they oriented in a punitive sort of way? Do they use, God forbid, isolation or solitary by any other name? Do they shackle kids as they transport them from their unit to have lunch so that everybody else can see that they've been sanctioned in some way or another? It's important to know what that facility is like and what their resources are within that facility. In the community based services, are safe caregivers allowed to participate? If the mom or the dad or grandma or grandpa or all of the above are safe and positive in terms of not otherwise engaging in blaming the youth for what has happened to them, the exploitation they've endured, but rather are going to be part of the solution, is that community-based service provider going to include the family at some point in time, perhaps not immediately? And is the youth willing to involve some of those members of their family in the services? All of those things are factors that I, as a judge, want to know, whether it's a community-based facility treatment approach or if it's a secure treatment centers. youth very often, and judges and others, refer to these secure treatment centers as lockdown facilities. That by itself, whether you call it a secure treatment center or lockdown, to me would be a place that I don't want to be if I'm a youth who needs services. As far as visiting those facilities, should a judge visit the place that they're sending youth? Why not? If you're there as someone who wants to know about their facility and you want them to know who you are and you want to be able to engage in working with them in a collaborative sort of way as part of a larger group, not you as a judge necessarily by yourself, why shouldn't you visit? Why shouldn't you take the chief probation officer or invite the chief probation officer to go with you, and perhaps someone from the prosecutor's office, children's court attorneys, we call them in my jurisdiction, not prosecutors, and someone from the juvenile public defender's office to go along with you to ensure that no one can say you as the judge are looking for a handout so you can send more kids to them, because we know that's happened in the past in other jurisdictions. So knowing what that facility provides, what that community-based organization provides, what their flexibilities are, and do they treat these individuals as individuals, not just another referral source that they're going to get paid for. All of that's very important.
Yeah, and also vetting them, asking questions like, what kind of de-escalation techniques do they use? Are they trauma informed? What's their success rate? Have they even treated someone who's been trafficked before? And how many of your kids that you've sent there been successful, or other judges have sent to certain places? Have those kids been successful? And asking questions, looking for reviews, and asking survivors. That's a big one. If you should have someone consulting you, hopefully, who is a survivor, have access to someone who has been through trafficking, and using their voice, because they know even the inside scoop of what places are healthy and what aren't. And like you said in the beginning, it does change. 1 year, it could be a place I'd be like, no, they're not ready. I'm not sending anyone there. And the next year, it's like, you know what? They've got their act together and they're doing really well. So right now, this would be a good place to go to. So really talking to survivors, because we work with these people, those of us in this movement are working with children and adults who've been trafficked almost every day of the week. And so we're talking with them, a lot of these kids that are being sent to facilities are keeping in touch with me or other survivor leaders, telling us what happened, why they ran. And so we're able to make recommendations and say, you know, what's going on here? You know, do you want some help to improve? Because we need places for kids to go. We want them to be good. We want them to be healthy. And we can let you know who is open to learning, because no place is going to be perfect, because we all make mistakes, but who's open to learning and growing and doing better and doing no harm.
Just one final comment from yours truly. It seems to me that those with whom they've established a relationship very often is going to be more than just a relationship that is more than just the time they're under the thumb of the court, but lasts longer than that. I know that in our girls program, we had young ladies who had successfully completed their treatment, were not on probation anymore. They were not under the thumb of the court. They kept in touch with the probation officer that had worked with them. They kept in touch with our program manager. They would say, let's get together and have coffee or a hamburger or whatever. They would talk about what's going on in their lives, you know, after court involvement. And very often it would come up with, you know, the discussion about, you know, that place was okay when I first went there, but toward the end, I was glad I was done because they were really turning bad. And finding out that information from someone who's got a relationship with them that is one of trust and one of confidence can communicate to our system of whether we need to take another look at that program or that facility, whether it's still a do no harm facility, or are they in it for the funds?
Mm-hmm.
And what role should a survivor have in the determination of their treatment plan?
Oh, you've got to have buy-in if you want it to last, first of all. And that can be difficult, they will come to you at different stages of, of change. And so it's important to know what their state of change that they're in, if they're contemplative, if they're ready to make changes or get help. But having their buy-in, if you want it to last and the less likelihood of them running away, you do need to have their buy-in and get their thought process on what do they need and try to figure that out, or what they want. Yeah.
Comment I would receive from whether they're male or female juvenile justice workers or in the juvenile justice participants, those accused of a delinquent act, or in the dependency world, those who ran from their foster placement, they would basically say, place me wherever you want. As soon as I get there, I'm going to run. Unless they've had a voice in determining where they're going to go, they're going to vote with their feet. That's what they do. And short of tying them to a lamp pole and tying a gag around their mouth, they're going to express their voice one way or another. So being part, their role should be in formulating their case plan, having a voice in how their case plan is going to work, how long it's going to take, where they're going to go. They may even want to go visit the places that you're offering as the 3 choices or 4 choices, so they can interview who's there. And they may run into some of their homies there, as they often say, oh, I saw one of my homies there and she says, this is a great place, but I don't trust her, so I don't think I want to go there, or whatever it may be. But returning some agency to these survivors that has been robbed from them by their exploiter, by the buyers, even by the system, is crucial if they're going to buy into what's being offered up as a resource for them.
Yeah, that's so true. I, as a juvenile, was a chronic runaway, and I was trafficked, but nobody asked me if I wanted to go to a home. They just put me in a home. But I didn't want to be at my own home, which is why I was running away. If they would have just included me and said, hey, here's our options, I probably would have chose the home they wanted me to go to. And because I had a voice and a say in it, I would have wanted to make it work better, But instead, when you're clamped down and shut down and not given any control over your life at all, or any voice, and you don't feel like anyone's listening to you, that equals when no one wants to listen to me equals nobody cares about me. So I'm not going to trust this place that you're sending me to. I know nothing about it. No one's talked to me about it. I'm just picked up and dropped off there. And before I even walk through the front door, I am working my way out and looking at where I'm going to run to, when I'm going to run, how can I get out of here and escape? And I come up with a master plan and I do it again and I leave. So having a voice and buy-in is critical.
Yes, and last question on this, what roles could judges and other court staff play in amplifying the voice of youth in determining the services that are available to other youth or to themselves?
Well, in this age of COVID and other variables being involved even pre-COVID, sadly, too many jurisdictions have limited resources and services that should be available to youth. So one of the things that judges can do and other court professionals and service providers is be part of a task force or a larger multidisciplinary team where these kinds of things are discussed to talk about what services are available. In this work, very often there are many moving parts and the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. In our community, much to everybody's surprise, there are several services available that at court we knew nothing about because we hadn't been out in the community. My judge mentor, when I was considering the bench, basically said to me, being on the bench, being in children's court is about 80% community time and 20% bench time. You have to get out in the community to know what's going on there and what's available and what the clientele that appear before you are facing. know that sitting in the courtroom or in your chambers, oblivious to what's going on around you. One of the things that I used to hear all the time, well, there aren't any services available. This was generally from the children's court attorneys, AKA prosecutors. And we would say, well, just because there aren't any doesn't mean we can't try to develop some. We don't have any money as public employees, but we can convene a group of folks that can help us come up with resources. And in my own experience, one of the fathers in our girls program who attended every hearing, was very helpful with his daughter getting through the process, was someone of means. And he and his daughter, after she was through with the system, established a 501c3 organization that was designed principally just to raise money to buy basic hygiene and other needs for the girls that she had come into contact with while she was in the program. She explained to her father, you don't understand how the very basic needs that young girls need that they don't have. If we could raise enough money to provide those basic things and funnel them through the court in a way that is, legal and above board, that would be a big help. So just that there is no funding is not a reason. Find a way to get it done, and you don't have to do it as the judge or court employees. You can be part of a larger team that brainstorms how to do this. And again, amplifying the voice of the youth. What do they need? We may think we know what they need, but we are not the experts. They are. We need to ask, and we need to, very importantly, listen to what they need, not to what we think they need.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today to discuss engaging youth choice and voice. This was the third of our 4 conversations in our 4-part series, Understanding and Communicating with Youth Survivors of Sex Trafficking. To learn more about best practices and working with youth who have survived child sex trafficking, please visit the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges Resource Center on Child Sex Trafficking. The link to the Resource Center is in the description of the video. We hope you can join us for our next and final conversation, which will focus on mitigating trauma in the courtroom.